Welcome to the Unshakeable Talks with me, Katy. This is where we lift the lid on what entrepreneurs are really going through. The struggles, the myths, the mistakes, and the things we've been sold to. This is where we talk about how we balance business and life. This isn't another podcast teaching strategy. This is where we talk about the raw, real truth about female entrepreneurship and what it really means to run a business and life and combine both of them together. Running a business as a woman isn't harder, it's just different. And it's time we talk about this. There is no cap on what we can achieve, because behind every business, there's the stuff no one dares to talk out loud. Welcome to the Unshakable Talks. In today's episode, I'm speaking to Jade. Jade is a spiritual teacher and the keeper of the Soul Salon. And today's episode took a complete turn, and you can actually see Jade's work in action. So I would really urge you to go and listen and watch it on YouTube. Welcome to the Unshakable Talks, Jade.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm very excited.
Because today's conversation is going to be special. It's going to be very different. You are a spiritual teacher.
Yes.
And your work is actually really impactful when it comes to women, especially on how they lead their life and in turn how they lead their businesses. But before we speak about your work, I would like the listeners to get to know Jade a little bit.
Yeah.
So who was Jade before?
So if I go back to my 20s, I think that's really an important time. I think it's a time where we are really figuring out a lot about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And at that point in my life, I was a hairdresser. So I fell into hairdressing at around 14. So I was always working. I was working from a young age. My parents separated when I was young. So my mum was, like majority of the time, I was growing up with a single parent. Mm-hmm. And financially lacking. So I was quite determined to work from a very young age. And I fell into hairdressing and I loved everything about it. It was creative, it was spontaneous, I never knew who was going to be sitting in the chair. And I think, in all honesty, hairdressing was the place where I started to really find a connection in the problems that women faced, and the thread that weaved amongst us all. But in all honesty, back then, even, through hairdressing, I was spiritually in the closet. So I would often be, holding the energy of the person that was sat in the chair, giving them spiritual guidance, but I was afraid to be seen in that, and I would suppress it. But hairdressing became my passion, and for a long time, it was what I invested all of my energy and time in. I became a mum for the first time at 25, so I was quite young. And I was still really determined then to be financially secure. I didn't want to depend on my husband, my partner, or anyone else for that financial freedom. And I think that probably did come from my childhood, I wanted that security and that safety. So, but also I think I was always meant to work for myself. I was always, had that that knowing that I wanted to create. And so when I became a mum, I moved from working in the salons to creating my own studio, my own space. But very quickly, what I know now is that I was overworking. I was lacking in boundaries. I was, trying to please everyone, trying to hold the responsibility of being a mum, which I value so deeply, but also, didn't have strong boundaries. I was saying yes to working till 11 o'clock at night after I'd put them to bed.
But I think this also goes back to that, yes, you were valuing being a mum, and I know that this was always where you saw yourself, and it was always the dream. But you also value Jade with her hairdressing business, which gave you the financial freedom. So I think it did, making this transition, I work with a lot of women who are doing this transition, and this is a common thread. It's like the guilt. We don't really want to let go of the person we were when we were working with our children, but actually finding a way to fully embrace being a mum and not feeling guilty and working, just adjusting and not trying to chase someone you've been before.
Yeah.
Is a big struggle for women, isn't it?
I think I always knew that I could do all the things. Like I always knew that that was possible, but I think for a long time it was you know, figuring out how that looked and how it aligned to me and my values and my belief and who I was, who I really was. And I think even back then at that point, I was only scratching the surface of who Jade really was at her core and what I was here to do, you know, with my life, with my mission, as well as being a mum and raising children and that being part of the legacy that I'm here to create. But yeah, definitely at that point, I hadn't worked out how to hold it all. And I was overgiving and overextending and burning myself out to kind of reach this level of financial safety, when actually, you know, that isn't what freedom is.
No, it isn't. It's what we think it is. It's what we've believed it should be, especially when you come from a background of a single parent household. And I didn't come from a single parent household, but my parents never had very much money. So there was never money in excess. There was never, I wouldn't say there was a money worry, so to speak, for me to feel as a child, but subconsciously I did feel it. I overheard conversations. I saw that I didn't have necessarily what other children had, and even though my parents are both working. And I had to learn in a later life that this very much kind of formed me in overachieving within my first business and just constantly doing and trying to get more and more money, getting the stability, even though I didn't need to really.
Yeah. And I think for me, like my dad was present, but separated. Yeah. You know, and there was a definite difference in the financial security of the households. So, you know, moving between that kind of financial security or not, I kind of formed a belief that it wasn't for me and that I had to work really, really hard in order to achieve that. And so, yeah, that was definitely fully present throughout all of my hairdressing career. And I went on to create a wedding hair business that worked around the children, but still there was that element of, you know, trying to create this freedom or this belief that having my own money would bring me that security, that safety in my life.
And it never came, didn't it? It never created the really deep feeling you were longing for.
No, yeah. It was surface level. And it wasn't until I fell pregnant with my third son that I really realised that what I was being called towards was depth, but not... It was within me, the depth that is within me. And, you know, everything that I'd been doing up until that point was only scratching the surface of who I really am and what I was here to do.
So the birth of your third child.
Yes, Parker.
That was an enormous turning point in your life.
Huge. It was what I consider the descent. You know, I really believe that... at some point in our lives as women, we are taken down into the caves of our own self in order to rise more in our truth. And it was like an initiation, an awakening, most people would probably describe it as. So yeah, I fell pregnant with him back in, well, he was born in 2019. And at this point in my life, you know, this was my third child, so I had the expectation that I knew what I was doing. I knew how it was going to look. You know, he would just slot into the world that we'd already created, and everything would be okay. And it wasn't until he was born that my entire world changed instantly.
Are you happy to share why that is?
Yeah, so Parker was born and diagnosed with a really rare disease at 4 weeks old. And operated on at 4 months old. And the problem is with this disease that he had was that there was no knowing of what was going to happen to him until they operated. You know, so there was a moment at 4 months old where I had to hand my son over to surgeons. I had to give him to them without knowing if or how he would return. And that moment for me was the ultimate surrender. It was the moment where I was facing death, and the only thing I could do was hold on to love, hold on to faith, and let go. I had to let go. And that was the moment that, you know, the tower moment where the ground fell beneath me and I fell into descent. Because if I can surrender to this, if I'm facing death, the death of my child, there's nothing more scary than that, then why am I not living? Why am I not living to the depth that I know I hold? Why am I not creating a life that is deeply purposeful in all areas? Why am I not fully present? Why am I chasing something that's outside of me? And my whole world changed in a moment.
And this really was the start for you to fully embodying and embracing, would you call it your gifts?
Yeah. I mean, I believe we're all gifted, every single one of us. We have our gifts and we have our own access to the divine. And we are channels and creative channels. And the deeper we go within ourselves, the more open we become to that. So yeah, it really was. And the first 6 months of first year of his life, we were in hospital a lot. And this was really difficult, you know. I had 2 other children at home. I closed my business as well. I often, you know, don't think on that, but I closed my hairdressing business, everything.
You had to?
I had to. I had no other choice. So everything, I surrendered everything. And we spent the first year in and out of hospital with big operations, and, you know, it was really difficult. But what I knew in that moment was the only thing that I could truly control was how I responded. And in order to find my balance for all of us, I had to let go of any expectation of how my life would look, of who I should be, you know, and just be fully there in the now in order to move through it in the most aligned, calm way, you know, for my children, for my husband, for all of us. And I remember being in the hospital with him, and he'd not long come back, and everybody had left, and he had all the wires in. And I remember looking at him and just feeling this deep gratitude for life and for love. And then it was almost like this whole teaching. I just started to remember this cycle. It was like I was being shown this cycle that happens to us and how we disconnect from the very truth of who we are, from our own power and our own internal knowing. And it was like they showed me where the expectation leads us to pressure, which leads us to overwhelm, which leads us to guilt, which leads us to shame, which leads us to comparison. And before we know it, we're chasing this illusion of what our life, our day, ourselves, our relationships, other people should be. And we are completely disconnected from who we truly are.
And this is, I think, an extremely important point to touch up on, because some listeners maybe think, where is this going? What does this have to do with business? But it has everything to do with business. It has everything to do how we are as women. Like I always say, and I teach very much to all my clients, everything starts and ends with you. And the comparison, the fears, the failures, all of this, what you just described, has everything to do with business.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, because I think there is, and we had a conversation before, I'm also guilty of this. I think it is not very tangible, your work. And for a lot of people who are maybe a bit more white and black and white, they can't really understand it. They maybe call it woo-woo, they maybe call it like she's crazy, or what are you talking about? And I have this in my own family. I would consider myself as very intrigued when it comes to the spiritual world. I'm definitely receptive of it. I don't know enough about it to be judgmental in any way. Through my work, however, now I meet so many interesting people, including yourself, and things just make sense. Like things how I kind of moved through my entrepreneurship journey make sense. Like what you say does make total sense if you allow your mind to go there and actually think a bit deeper. So let's talk about how this actually affects you as a woman within business.
Well, first of all, there's nothing logical about it.
True.
First of all, it's not something you're meant to understand. It's the whole point. It's something you feel. You can feel it in the way I speak. You can feel it in the presence of somebody who knows themselves truly, you know. And I think that we have been taught to receive facts, figures, proof. You know, we've been taught to live in our minds, and our mind is not the place of truth. Our mind is an engine that holds information, and you know, it's powerful, but it's not where we want to be leading our lives from. We are so disconnected from our bodies, and our body holds the wisdom, holds the knowing, holds the knowledge. And this is the place of truth, your heart. And so, you know, for me, it's been a journey of really understanding that my job is not to explain this to you. My job is not to make you understand. It's to help you open yourself up to feel, to remember, and you will. In the words that I use, in being together, because I am fully in my body as a human, but I am completely connected to my divinity. And that's not something you can prove, it's something you feel.
So when you work with women and they come to a place of being fully connected with themselves and with their truth, and that is a process, and it's a continuous journey.
Cycle of death and rebirth.
Yeah, it's continuous. It doesn't. It's not like a 5-week program or anything like this.
It's not linear. It's a continuous cycle throughout your entire life. You know, it will just your journey of remembrance and return and reclamation will continue. Death and rebirth will continue. You know, your healing, your evolving, your becoming will continue. It's meant to. That's the beauty of being human.
So without obviously saying names or giving too much away because of confident informations, but if you could describe to me one client who comes to you from their starting point to when they are a couple of months down the line with working from you, how does their life and business change? Do you only work with business women, or do you work with women in general? What is your, like, the work you're doing is so impactful, but if I would ask you for something tangible to demonstrate that impact, what would that be?
I think women, the running theme of why a woman says yes is because she knows that she can't not. And most women who say, I know I'm meant to work with you. And all the women who step into the Soul Salon are ready to return to themselves. And I really believe that when a woman returns to herself, her body, her heart, her internal knowing, her sovereignty as a leader, you know, she doesn't just change the world, she heals it. You know, and all of the women who step into the Soul Salon are craving depth, devotion. They're so done with surface level living, and that can show up whether it's their business, their relationships, just their personal self. A lot of the women know that they hold a deeper purpose that they're not fulfilling. And a lot of the women already know when they step in that there's something that they need to face within themselves in order to stand fully in their truth. So there is a lot of different aspects to why a woman says yes to stepping into the Soul Salon and working with me. But it is always through resonance. It's always through that inner knowing above any logical reason.
Would you say that most women come to that point from a great point of almost pain and surrender? Because when you describe the story of your son, Harper, I didn't face a death situation, but I can really relate to this in my own kind of family dynamics. I was also presented with a situation where I had no control over, which I had to surrender. There was no other choice. So I really found myself on the back of this after doing all the healing work and all of this. And it's a continuous thing.
Yeah.
So I'm still continuing on this. So I can relate to this. At the time, it didn't make sense at all. I was referring to, why is the universe giving me this challenge? Why me? Why this? So we're clinging to kind of certain things, don't we, in those kind of times. But the Soul Salon you created, would you say that most women come from a great place of pain, or from a place of great unsatisfaction about their lives, or how they feel about themselves and everything else?
I think they have always stepped in through the moment of no more. Mm-hmm. They might not have any idea really what that means or is going to look like, mm-hmm. but they know that they can't continue in the same way that they have, for themselves, for their children, their relationships, their life, their businesses. And it's not always through pain. You know, women mm-hmm. step in when they, you know, they've done a lot of healing work. Some of them are, you know, really far in their spiritual journeys, and women who are holding, you know, other women, mm-hmm. for example. But they know that there is a depth that they're not reaching, mm-hmm. And they're ready to claim it. You know, they're ready to be devoted to what matters most to them. And at that surface level, that is the thing that they're ready to say no to.
So tell me about the Soul Salon and the 7 keys of...
The Soul Keys and the 7 gates of divine reclamation.
That's what it is.
So the Soul Salon it's a temple of the heart. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean that it is a place for both sanctuary and initiation. You know, you will step into the Soul Salon and be seen and held and safe, and you will feel safe, but you will also be initiated deeper and deeper and deeper into your truth. It's mm-hmm. a place of remembrance, return and reclamation in whatever way you are meant to return to yourself, mm-hmm. you know. So this will look different for all women. But my main thing around creating this is that I realised in my journey, and there's so many more layers to my journey, that one, I was hiding my mm-hmm. truth, my gifts, but also, you know, when I first started to follow the call of creating the Soul Salon and opening this as a business, like stepping into the world with this is what I'm doing and this is mm-hmm. how I'm leading, like going against the norm as well, the amount of people that said, that's not a business, not even a thing, you know?
Yeah.
I knew that there were parts of myself that I needed to witness because my ground was shaky. Mm-hmm. I knew that in order to be seen fully, and even just seen when you look in the mirror, I had to witness myself. Mm-hmm. And this is the process that I take women through in the sacred return. So this is about returning to every aspect of yourself, bringing the parts of you that you've shamed, you've blamed, you've disenfranchised mm-hmm. and disconnected from, into wholeness, so that you can lead as a sovereign woman. Mm-hmm. And for me, what that looks like is becoming the witness of yourself, becoming the healer of yourself, and becoming the teacher of yourself. And when a woman returns to that, okay? Can I help you? Can I help you?
Yeah. I'll take anything. Okay.
Close your eyes. And back a bit. So we're just going to stabilise your energy field. Take a deep breath in. Out through the mouth. And again, in through the nose. Out through the mouth. And again, in through the nose. Out through the mouth. Up and down, in through the nose. When you're ready now, you can start to just come back into your body and into the room.
Need a tissue, sorry.
Did you see her body respond to it?
Yeah.
Wild, right?
I got that one for you.
Did you?
Yeah, because I probably don't have any opportunity.
No, I never. When I do that with my clients, obviously. So this is the feminine energetics. This is what channels through me. So it's feminine restoration. So that was coming up from your emotion, and probably what we were speaking about. So the cough is coming.
I had a very emotional week, I'm not gonna lie. So maybe.
So the cough comes because if we, this is recording.
We haven't stopped recording.
Oh, the cough comes because you might not want me to say this, but the cough comes.
No, that's fine.
The cough comes to us when the truth is rising and we are suppressing it. This is the voice, right? So it wants to be heard. So obviously you're holding space for us and our conversations, and you know how beautiful that is. But if you have had a week that's been a lot, then there is part of you that's being suppressed in this moment. And this is what I'm talking about when I say about being the witness, because you haven't had time to sit with that. You haven't had time to look at it. You haven't had time to be with yourself, to feel, to let the emotion rise, to let the anger, the sadness, the happiness, the joy, whatever it is. You're not feeling it. So then your body then responds, and it responds in that way. And it's not until we are brought back into this knowing that our body is not a prison. Our body is the temple. Our body is the place where, we find wisdom, where we find truth, where we're here to live a soul in a human body. And there's something so raw and beautiful about that. But when we are living in our mind and trying to avoid ourselves and not allowing ourselves to feel, then we're missing the whole point of being here.
But it's like how we are conditioned, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was a bit surreal, but very interesting. And I think it's really true what you say. I think the average person would probably, how it would show up for the average person is, when you had a really busy time and then you one of a sudden get ill. When you go on holiday and then you get ill.
Yeah, because
you spend the first couple of days of holiday just in bed, ill, having the flu or whatever.
Yeah.
It's because of it does, everything shows up within your body at some point, doesn't it?
Because the body it holds wisdom and knowledge and memory, and this is why we're all so disconnected from the present moment, because we're not in our bodies. We're out there, we're looking to the future or back to the past, or we're trying to become who we think we should become, instead of just being who we are right now, being with what we're feeling or what we're being presented with in life. And for me, life is the initiation. Life is where we find our deepest medicine and wisdom that we can then share with other people. And this is what my biggest purpose is to return women especially first to that, because we're so disconnected. Women are meant to come together and bring their medicine, because each and every one of us holds medicine, power, healing for another. Bring it to the table, bring it to the temple, to share, not because of a strategic reason, but because we're gifting the other person our presence.
And that's a very ancient way to kind of look at this. Where do you think this has changed within society?
What do you mean?
When did it start? Because obviously, if we would go back hundreds, thousands of years, this has very much always been a part of living.
Yeah, so the patriarchy and, the systems, I think that when all people are connected deeply to their body, their heart, their inner knowing, their intuition, they're really hard to manipulate. They're really hard to control. And so whichever story we go back to, whichever way we look at this, that's the truth. We are led there as people, away from ourselves, so that we are easy to manipulate and we are easy to control. Because, the most powerful person in the room is the one that's got nothing to hide, and the person that knows how to hold themselves, to be with themselves, before they even try to hold another.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And if you look at Jade as a hairdresser, and I know you had an extremely successful business as a hairdresser and you loved your job, and look at Jade now doing such an impactful work, which is maybe not seen as impactful from a lot of people. So you're always going against the grain. You're almost like, I would say you almost have to prove yourself all the time that your work is valuable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you navigate this?
By not.
Okay.
I don't prove myself. I have no desire to coach people or drag them into the temple or to themselves. I hold the full knowing and trust that the people who are meant to receive through me, from the Soul Salon will. You know, and that is something that I have come to this place through my own journeys of remembrance and descent and return and death and rebirth. Like the last 7 years, it's been constant. I feel like I've been bitch slapped by the divine left and right and left and right. You know, it's been a lot. It's been a journey. But what I've witnessed in myself is the way I can hold the polarities. I can hold the polarities. We're meant to. And so I can hold that it resonates with some and doesn't with others. And that's okay.
So all of those struggles, a lot of women in business have, like the visibility piece, being actually seen for the person they really are, for the mission they really deep down have, which may not align with someone else. The comparison loop, which I obviously see a lot within the coaching industry. Like you see someone else do what you maybe want to be doing, and you feel like you constantly comparing yourself. Yeah. And with women in general, we're always comparing each other. You don't have those challenges anymore, don't you?
It's there. And this is the thing, like we never escape it because we are human. And what I really value is learning how to respond instead of react. So, you know, when we're presented with a moment where we can feel ourselves being drawn to comparison or overwhelm, you know, we're on that cycle of pressure that I spoke about before. And I see it like a treadmill. It's like we start running on this treadmill and we're like this, and then before we know it, we've completely lost where we are and who we are. And so this is one of the most foundational teachings that I teach, because when we are so connected to ourselves and present with ourselves, we see it. We see like comparisons here. You know, this is coming from my ego. But what does my soul know? You know, what is my truth? What is my heart saying? What does my body say? And then you get to choose. And this all happens in a breath. Just in a breath. And this is what makes it so powerful, is when you are with yourself fully, present in the moment, when you are holding space for yourself first, when you're witnessing, then you are able to see that if I react, I'm reacting from ego, from fear, from comparison, from, you know, this illusion that I'm going to be shamed or cast out or unsuccessful and fail, and all of these things. It spirals. And we're human, so that will happen. But for me, it's I now know how to see it, breathe through it, and then decide.
See, I had a conversation recently with someone about shadow work. It was a very brief conversation, and obviously there are different archetypes of the shadows. And she asked what shadow I would associate most with me. And I said, my answer was, and it came really natural, I said to her, I can see parts of me in every single one of them, but I don't feel that they're present because I can identify, like if I feel like I compare myself to someone, or if I'm fearful of something, and I know how to deal with it. So I don't really tend to get into this spiral anymore after I've done, and I've got a lot of work still to do myself, but this was this conversation where I really noticed all the work I've done. Yes, I have all those challenges still. We all do, like you said. But I actually can move through them so much easier, and they will not hold me back anymore.
And this is what self-leadership and self-mastery is, right?
Yeah.
You know, this is being curious enough to look. But one thing I'll say about shadows is that, you know, everything, we are humans of polarity, you know, soul and body, light and dark, death and rebirth. You know, our shadow is not something to shame. It's not something to blame. It's something to embrace. It teaches us.
It's just something also to get, it's part of you, it's something to get to know you on a deeper level, like the depth you were
The
referring
feminine
to.
is both light and dark. It's not all love and light, it's depth and darkness. And this is the point when we are able to travel to all of our spaces within ourselves without holding shame, blame, judgment, from a space of love, looking at it all through the lens of love. That's when we can start to lead in alignment. That's when we become truly sovereign and free. We're not trying to be anybody else. We're with ourselves, being who we really are.
I definitely can say from my own experience, since I've really made a conscious effort to not... I've always thought, like, I have a huge feminine side, and I always had this internal struggle of being, like, really successful and having a successful business, but also really fully embracing my feminine side. But since I kind of stopped doing this and really embracing my family side and bringing this also to my business and how I lead and how I actually run my business now, it made a huge difference to me. Business just feels easier. It feels, life is easier. Everything just feels more peaceful and easier for me. I guess that's the best way for me to describe it. But if women are listening to this episode and they still don't quite understand this or can't see a point where they feel like, okay, this is what I should be doing, or this is what could help me, or this is what we all need, are there any, I don't want to call it top tips or something because it's not tips, but is there any kind of touch points you can give the listeners which would indicate actually stop trying to prove and engage in, let's say, another business blueprint or investing in whatever that may be, and start looking inwards, start kind of return to yourself and working on this? Are there any touch points you can give the listeners?
I think to surrender, and that's the hardest part, is to let go of, all of this idea of what it should look like and how it should be, and ask yourself what you really want, what you really, really want, like hand on heart, in your body, truth. What do you want for yourself in your life? What is an illusion? What here are you clinging to that's not even yours? We often end up in a place where we look at our lives and we're trying to achieve things or holding stories that don't belong to us. So for me, it's that surrender piece is one of the hardest things, and putting yourself into places and spaces where you are being the witness, where you are really truly holding space to connect to yourself, to witness yourself, to feel into what it is that you really desire. I don't think there are, a free step tip. I think this work is something that you have to become devoted to. It's not a quick fix. Everything that I do is longer term, intimate, devotional. It takes time, I don't believe that you can do this work in 3 weeks or, I just don't.
But that's with anything though, isn't it? Like everyone always looks for a quick fix, for a quick solution, but nothing great happens quick. Nothing great happens without struggle. So I think that's an important message also to send, is that nothing is instant. And you actually have to kind of put the work in, however that may look like for you. And there is definitely, I think, one of the things I'm really taking from our conversation is that there is definitely a place where women should kind of go and realize that there's a different way of doing things. And it's okay, even though we have been told differently, but...
I think there's no wrong, right? There's no wrong. I think that everybody has to, and is here to lead in a way that truly aligns with who they are and what they value and what they believe in, and being devoted to that, whether that looks, whatever that looks like. But what I see so much is that disconnection, and I think that I know deeply in my entire being that women are craving depth, and whatever that depth looks like for you, it's where we're being called right now in this time. For me, the biggest thing about working or stepping into the Soul Salons, coming to the temple, working with me, the journey of the sacred return, for example, we move through life. Life is the teaching, it is the curriculum. And the women are learning how to return to themselves, how to hold themselves, how to be with themselves, how to witness, heal, teach themselves through their life as the initiation. You know, working with, there's no course, there's no paperwork. It's presence, it's resonance, it's real human experience. And that's what makes it so different. That's what makes it so edgy for people. And that's also what makes it so powerful. Because I don't want the women who walk the sacred return, for example, to stay. I want them at some point to walk away as a sovereign leader they came here to be. And that is the purpose of it all. What I've noticed through all of the journeys with my clients is that when a woman does return to herself and her truth and her body, something is birthed through the process. And that's a really powerful thing because it's coming from within them, whether that be a book, a business, an actual child, like whatever it is, the way they're leading in their lives, art, you know, whatever it is, at some point, through that return to themselves, a truth rises and then is formed into matter. And this is how we bring the sacred back into being human.
If you've been feeling stuck or disconnected from the woman behind your business, this is your sign. The Identity Shakeup is my new free audio, a short, powerful reset to help you to get clear on the person who you've become and the person your business needs next. Head to the link in the show notes to access it today.